Something strangely common when a movie or series aimed at families or children is released and it's considered subpar, you'll see reviews and comments calling it harmful to children and something that'll rot their brains, even if it's the most innocent thing ever and the messages and images are not something that'll leave any lingering negative effect on them. It's considered detrimental to their growth, and I find that rather hyperbolic. A 7-year-old watching a Minecraft movie is not going to prevent them from becoming a life-saving neurosurgeon or a brilliant scientist. It's just going to be that oddball movie with Jack Black singing about lava chicken they saw in their youth, which they liked or did not. But this then begs the question about what media does actually have a negative impact on the children watching. What is actually unhealthy and bad for them? Well, I'm going to start with the platform I've uploaded this video on because there are so many horrible videos supposedly aimed at children on here that have no positive mental stimulation or entertainment value of any kind. Some of you might remember the infamous Elzagate controversy that put YouTube in hot water for a while. These were cheaply done animated videos featuring popular characters like Elsa, Spider-Man, and Peppa Pig doing things like giving birth or having surgery or doing other things you probably would not see them doing in the official productions. While there is the YouTube Kids section intended to filter out videos inappropriate for children, the system just saw that they had children's characters and were animated and let them through. As a result, young children left unsupervised by parents treating YouTube like a babysitter found themselves watching these disturbing videos that flooded the website. Sometimes they involved a lot of blood. Other times the characters could be placed in sexual situations. Either way, they were clearly made by content farms just pushing these out with the hope that children would click on the thumbnail because their favorite princess or superhero was on it and then be treated to whatever bizarre imagery they'd conjured up. While YouTube would attempt to crack down on these videos, they never really went away, and channels would move on to other popular characters like the Paw Patrol and Bluey. Although now, instead of cheap animation created on Flash and other such programs, they're using AI to generate these videos. YouTube is now flooded with these AI-generated monstrosities that do nothing to fuel the imagination. But even beyond that, I find them to be incredibly creepy. Whenever I stumble onto these AI videos featuring beloved characters, I think they're going to jump out of the screen and eat me. It's very common when searching for something that the sponsored video at the top of the results will be AI-generated. Or let's say you search for a children's character like Doraemon. Mixed in with the actual episodes will be AI-generated videos of the character, all of which look unnerving and typically made to look frightening. There's nothing charming or endearing about these creepy-looking videos. They're now infesting the internet, and of which there's no real protection in place, because big companies are unfortunately supporting the implementation of AI. Generative AI does nothing more than take something that already exists and spits it out without any real thought about what made the original work resonate so much. Scammers especially love these AI tools because it allows them to prompt things quicker and cheaper. And even with YouTube now requiring them to disclose whether the video uses AI, that has not slowed them down. It also seems to seep into the real world. Look no further than the infamous Willy Wonka experience in Glasgow. The person who put that event together used AI to create his advertisements promising a tour of Wonka's chocolate factory. Now you would think the supposed live event would have actual photos of what this attraction will look like, but that was not enough to deter children or their parents from going there. The event turned out to be as cheaply produced as the AI images generated for it, as it took place in a sparsely decorated warehouse with minimal food and activities, and the saddest looking Oompa Loompa I've seen. The script given to the actors hired for the event was also apparently generated by AI. An AI that did not even bother to scan through Charlie and the Chocolate Factory or watch any of the film adaptations because it made up things like a creature in the walls called the Unknown. The whole thing was an obvious scam that led to upset and crying children, and I imagine greater scrutiny from the parents whenever they now see advertisements for these sorts of events on Facebook. By the way, William Cole, the person who put together the Wonka experience, recently stood trial on pedophilia charges and is now on the sex offenders list, which makes one realize that things could have gone a lot worse. Something that's become common with adults but can certainly affect children too is doomscrolling. According to polls, a surprising number of parents allow that children scroll services like TikTok. I have my own criticisms of TikTok, which is why I don't use it, but the most disturbing is its use as a funnel of information. People use the platform just casually scrolling from one short video to the next, all of which are intended to get an immediate reaction from the viewer, whether positive or negative. It pummels you with bad news without letting you absorb or think about it or even judge how accurate it is, because social media platforms are riddled with misinformation that can have a troubling effect on someone's mental state. So imagine what that could do with children who are still learning things as they grow up in the world. Human brains were not made to absorb information this way, quickly scrolling from one thing to the next without taking the time to process it all. I'm reminded of the film Tomorrowland, where a giant machine is feeding doomsday information about the future with the intention of making people try to fix it. Instead, it results in a bunch of people falling further into doomerism and not bothering to come up with actual workable solutions to solve the issues that plague our planet. I've mainly focused on the internet's harmful effects on children, but what about traditional media like television? Well, there have been a few television series that have left actual harm. Most infamously was an episode of Pokemon, where Pikachu uses his lightning powers to stop some missiles. Of course, Pikachu has used his abilities in several episodes without leaving any effect on the children watching, but this one was different because his powers resulted in a flashing strobe effect, which immediately caused discomfort and epileptic reactions from children throughout Japan who were watching the episode. Many were taken to hospital, with a few continuing to have effects for a number of weeks. The episode was immediately pulled and has never been aired again anywhere in the world, not even in edited form. It also led to stricter guidelines for cartoons and other shows on Japanese television to prevent this sort of thing from happening again. Although even before this, the United Kingdom was already ahead of the curve with rules about flashing lights on television. For example, the intro for Tasmania was edited when it played on BBC to remove the flashing lights seen in the original version. Surprisingly, despite how widespread the story was and said Pokemon episode not airing in North America as a result, I still surprisingly see a lot of media released here that have those sorts of flashing lights, which can be especially dangerous for someone with epilepsy. An infamous case happened with Incredibles 2, which had a scene which caused discomfort among viewers for the use of flashing strobe lights. This led to theaters having to put up warnings for customers and Disney re-editing that scene for the home release to lessen the impact. And yet, despite that controversy, that has not lessened the use of flashing lights in movies and television shows, including those aimed at a family audience. I've long been an advocate for not having flashing lights in media, as it can be uncomfortable and nauseating for even people like myself who don't have epilepsy. This even extends to concerts, as popular singers like Beyonce, Billie Eilish, and Charli XCX will have flashing lights during their concerts. This must surely be disappointing for their fans who have epilepsy who would love to go to their concerts but either cannot go or have to be extra careful because of this. It's why whenever I edit a clip or trailer into one of my videos, I always make sure to try and remove any flashing lights that appear in said clip. And on a purely artistic level, I've yet seen an example with these flashing strobe lights added to the experience. They only seem to distract, in my opinion. Meanwhile, there are authoritarian regimes who use children's characters as propaganda and child indoctrination by teaching them harmful lessons and messages. An infamous example is the show Tomorrow's Pioneers, which is produced by Hamas, the totalitarian dictatorship that has run Gaza for 20 years. First airing in 2007 after they took over Gaza, the intent of this program is to teach children in the region about the necessity of martyrdom and impart anti-Semitic messages against Jews, not just in Israel, but in the entire world. The show is hosted by someone dressed as an animal, with the first host bearing a striking resemblance to Mickey Mouse. The Disney family would respond to this use of Mickey, expressing their unsurprising disapproval of using him to send these horrible messages to children in Palestine. The character was then killed off, only to be replaced by a bumblebee host. Since then, a rabbit and a bear would take that place, but still imparting the same messages. And it was not just Disney and Israel who spoke out against the series. The Palestinian information minister at the time the show started airing opposed Tomorrow's Pioneers, stating that a show aimed at children should not be used to convey these sorts of messages and ordered it removed from the airwaves. But Hamas continued to produce new episodes until 2022. In contrast, the Palestinian version of Sesame Street, titled Shara Simsim, sought to present a message of coexistence between Israelis and Palestinians, with children and Muppets playing together, sharing meals, and learning from the other. While it was a slightly bumpy road getting it to screens as Israelis and Palestinians discussed how to approach the segments, Shara Simsim eventually premiered in 1998. The hope was to build tolerance towards both Israelis and Palestinians, and according to surveys conducted shortly after the show premiered, children from both sides did come away with more positive views of the other. Although the series stopped producing new episodes in 2011, it's possible those very children who were polled have now grown up to be involved in groups trying to achieve peace between Israel and Palestine, as difficult as that may now seem. To conclude, whether film or series is trying to send a needed message to viewers or just being silly, it has value, and I find most professionally produced media for children is ultimately harmless. It's these other examples I mentioned that you need to be concerned about. See you next time.